Hello and welcome back. Once again, I am Ashok Rajguru, your tutor. So far, we have seen in the previous videos about symptoms, the hierarchy of symptoms, and then we also looked at the mental and mind symptoms. In this video, we are now going to see what rubrics should I be taking to my repertorial analysis. That is a very important step. As we shall see, if you put in garbage, you get out garbage. It's that simple concept of computer science, which also applies to repertorial analysis in homeopathy. The objectives of this video are what to take for repertorization, what should be the rubric size, and how many rubrics should we take to our repertorial analysis. What are the common mistakes that people make? And this is one of the reasons why failures lead to people looking for other more esoteric means of analysis or finding a remedy. Now you will recall from our previous videos that the key word is dynamic. Every disease results from a dynamic mistunement of the vital force. So what is most important are those symptoms which are dynamic. So I shall repeat what we had seen earlier. We had constructed a pyramid and saw that the most important are the dynamic expressions, either in the language of the patient or in terms of his posture, expression, modalities, because modalities are dynamic expressions, and other symptoms which belong to the generals because they give us a more complete picture. Then we talked about locations and how they are important because remedies have a certain affection or affinity for certain tissues or organs. Then we saw that the results of the disease or the products of the disease in the form of degeneration of organs or tissues is of lesser importance, and the name of the disease is of even lower importance, although we do not rule that out because it can help us to rule out certain symptoms which essentially belong to a named disease. We had also talked about the Bonninghausen's X diagram, which is a very good method of laying out in front of us on a flat sheet of paper and assigning the various quadrants to categorize our symptoms. And then we can determine those symptoms on the basis of the pyramid that we saw previously. So in the Bonninghausen's diagram, we saw that we require those three fundamental coordinates to determine the symptom, which are location, modality, sensation, and importantly, any concomitant which seems to be not based on the presenting sickness or pathology. So the concomitant is another important feature of our symptom which will determine its importance. So I would now like to tell you that we must choose our rubrics well. Searching a remedy is like searching a person in a crowd. If you need help from people around you, you should be able to describe very accurately and clearly and yet concisely what that person looks like if we wish to search that person. Here is an example. Supposing I'm looking for my cousin and I tell you that he is my uncle's son. He is also the son of my aunt. He is my father's brother's son. And he's the son of my uncle and aunt. And he is in the army. Now you will realize I do have 6 rubrics or 6 symptoms out here. But they are basically repetitions of the same thing. My uncle's son is obviously called a cousin. My aunt's son, if she's married to the same uncle, will also be my cousin. My uncle happens to be my father's brother. And he is also the son of my uncle and aunt. And the fact that he's in the army is too vague. So what am I likely to find? People who are assisting me may probably point to a crowd and ask me, can you locate your cousin amongst one of these? Now that might sound humorous, but it's not funny really. This is a very common mistake which I shall be pointing out during the course that follows and also in this video to some extent. Let us see another way of describing my cousin who is lost and I am searching for him. Now I can describe and say that he is a male cousin who is blonde. Pretty good description. He's 30 years old. He's a doctor. He is 6 feet tall and he's got a green beard. Now, this particular rubric of doctor is of little help to identify a person. Nobody walks around in the street or in the supermarket with a stethoscope around his neck or her neck and a lab coat. You can't identify a doctor from any other person. It's not written on the face unless that person happens to be in the clinic. So a male cousin, good rubric, blonde, very good, 30 years old, individualizing, 6 feet tall, individualizing, and green beard is in fact very characteristic of a person. So this is going to help me find my cousin more easily. Now, supposing somebody brings up this person. Now, this person is male. He's now bald, but maybe he was blonde. Look at his eyebrows. But he is definitely not 30 years old. So I can rule it out. In my next search or in the next suggestion that comes up with people who are helping me to search, I will again ask them, please find me a male who is blonde, who is 30 years old, who is 6 feet tall and has a green beard. And certainly I'll be able to find my cousin instantly because he stands out of the crowd. Another common mistake that often is made by many practitioners, and this includes very experienced practitioners who have a name, who have fame, and who publish their results on websites and in journals. So the examples that follow have been taken from the internet, from cases reported by practitioners, or in fact even published in journals. I will be discussing those later in later modules to guide you how we can use solid foundation of repertorial analysis and conventional classical homeopathic philosophy to arrive at a result which can be repeated and which is guaranteed to work. So the point I am making here is using far too many rubrics is not going to help at all. Look at this repertorization. This practitioner has used 21 rubrics. Obviously, it means the person doesn't know what he's looking for. Let's look a little deeper. Some of the rubrics have only 20 remedies, 2 remedies, 8 remedies, 10 remedies, 32 remedies. That is not going to be very helpful, as we shall see later. Another common mistake is taking one-sided rubrics for repertorial analysis. This is one case we shall be dealing in a later module, and just have a look at the kind of rubrics that have been taken for analysis. I'll be showing you 2 slides, so please bear with me. Here are these rubrics, 19 rubrics, and out of 19, 18 of them are related to mind symptoms. And there is only one that deals with the chief complaint, which is bladder, urination, dribbling due to an enlarged prostate. This patient has come to the practitioner with the chief complaint of the bladder. And look at this. 18 out of 19 rubrics are mind rubrics. What is the disadvantage of doing that? The disadvantage of this is you are going to overemphasize one remedy over and over again. And there are many ways of dealing with it. One of the ways of dealing with it is combining rubrics which have nearly the same meaning, which we shall do in the next slide. This is what I wanted to emphasize, and we shall have a look at how it could be done better. Once again, as I told you in the previous case, many of these rubrics are very small. They have just 11, 19, 26, 27 remedies in that rubric. Why am I insisting on using bigger rubrics? We shall just see after a few slides. One thing we need to understand is that when rubrics describe the same or a similar kind of a complaint in a different language, it is best to combine them. Otherwise, we are going to be re-emphasizing and weighing one particular remedy too high in our analysis, which is bound to give incorrect results. Now just have a look at these rubrics, which have been boxed in a red box. Mind admonition aggravates. Ailments from anger, indignation with. Ailments from honor, wounded. Ailments from rudeness of others. Mind weeping when remonstrated. Mind weeping from admonition. And mind you, all these rubrics contain very few remedies. Some of them are having only 26 remedies. One of them is having 19. So if I combine all these, and I shall show that technique to you when I take up this particular case in a later module, you will be able to reduce the number of rubrics used, and you will be able to avoid the danger of weighing one particular remedy too high in your analysis and taking away the essence of the case. Now look at these boxes. Once again, ailments from suppressed anger and emotions suppressed. They virtually mean the same thing. And if you compare the remedies, you will find that the same remedies have been repeated. That doesn't help us in a fair analysis. Look at this further. Fear of in a crowd, fear of narrow places. So it has something to do with space. Another thing is, look at these two rubrics. Ailments of from rudeness of others and ailments of being neglected by one's father. Are we sure that what happened in the childhood was the reason for this complaint? We shall see that when we take this case later. Next, how many rubrics should I be taking, and what are the kind of rubrics that will help me to come to the correct remedy or to a remedy close enough? Here is a graph which has been prepared from a wonderful book by a German writer, Chris Kurz. What in essence the author tells us is that if I take 5 rubrics to an analysis, the probability is almost 60% of finding the simillimum in all the rubrics. But if I increase the number of rubrics I take to my analysis to 10, my probability drops to less than 35%. And if I take 15 rubrics, there is only a 20% chance of finding a simillimum in all the rubrics. This is a statistical analysis which is based on fact. So what is the golden mean? Where exactly do I strike a balance? I take guidance from my teacher, Dr. Will Taylor and Grant Bentley. And I have found that following their advice has helped me considerably, and you can take advantage of that. So the first thing is, obviously there has to be at least one rubric. Okay. 4 is good. No more than 8, and anywhere between 4 to 6 is ideal. Now that's fine if a teacher tells you and you follow that advice and you do get good results. But is there any mathematical rational basis for that? We'll just see that in the next few slides. The question that comes to our mind now is, does size of the rubric matter? Oh, indeed it does. My teacher, Dr. Will Taylor, says that the rubric should not be too big, nor should it be too small. And what do we mean by too big? Some practitioners tell us that you should use very large rubrics of the size of 300 to 500 remedies. But is that really necessary? We are told that that will help to cast the net wider. But how wide should we cast the net? So Dr. Will Taylor's advises, and he uses the metaphor of Goldilocks and the 3 bears, that there are some rubrics which are too big, and he calls them the Papa Bear sized rubrics. His definition is less than 200. In fact, his definition is around 160 to 170. I would not mind if we could stretch it to 200, but ideally it should be less than 200. Otherwise, the polycrests are going to dominate your analysis. Mama bear is just the right size, and that is anywhere between a 50 to 160, or maybe stretch it to 200. And the baby bear rubrics, okay, they are much smaller, and they should be used with care and only after looking up materia medica references to ensure that those rubrics are small, not because they are lacking in their provings or lacking in clinical evidence, but essentially because they affect fewer organs or fewer tissues. This information can be easily found by looking at the source from where this has been included in the repertory. So is there a science behind choosing the number of the rubrics size and the number of rubrics? Or is it just based on the practice of one single practitioner? You'll be surprised that yes, definitely there is a logic and there is a mathematical reason for that. Much as I showed you that bar chart from Kurtz's book, here is another mathematical fact which will help you. If there are 23 people in a room, you could just go and ask, and this can be used as a parlor game, how many people are having a birthday on the same date? What do you think would be the correct answer? Well, mathematics says that there is a 50-50% chance that two people will be having the same birthday. I will show you the mathematics in the next slide. So in a room of 23 people, there is a 50% chance that two people will have the birthday on the same day. Not necessarily that day that you are playing this game, but any time in the year. And suppose the number of people in the room goes up to 75. What is your guess? Well, here are the numbers. There is a 99.95% chance that two people will be having the same birthday. Very surprising. And trust me, I'll show you the mathematics. Don't take my word for it. So in other words, having more than 75 people doesn't make one bit of a difference. I'm bound to find one person who will be sharing the same birthday as me. If you have 100, maybe a few more. But I am only concerned with finding one person who has the same date of birth as mine, a same birthday as mine. Interesting stuff. So let's see the mathematics now. Let us now look at the mathematics of the birthday paradox which we saw in the previous slide. 23 people in a room makes it possible to have 253 possible pairs. Two people to have different birthdays, the possibility is 364, which is one day less than 365, divided by 365, which means that the chances of two people having different birthdays is 99.726%. The probability of one pair having the same birthday, however, is 364 divided by 365 to the exponential power of 253 because of the permutations, combinations, and the probability mathematics. That makes it possible that the probability of having one pair having the same birthday is 49.95%. So the chance of having a match is 50%. Quite surprising, isn't it? Now let's see what happens if the room is populated with more number of people. This is the maths behind the Mama Bear rubric which Dr. Phil Taylor has taught me. Let's take 75 people in a room, which makes it possible to have 2,775 possible pairs of people. Once again, when we do the mathematics, two people having different birthdays remains the same. probability of having one pair having the same birthday is now that same number of fraction to the power of 2775, and that changes the whole game. When I do that, what I find is this number, which means 99.95% chances of finding another person in two people in the room having the same birthday. Very surprising. Now, if I'm looking just for another person who has the same birthday as mine, with 75 people in the room, I have a 99.95% chance of finding one partner. If I were to increase the number, it may increase the number of people I'll find, but they will be different people. So if I increase the number of remedies in a rubric, it can show me new possibilities, but essentially I am looking for one remedy. I shall now summarize what we have seen in this video. We talked about the X diagram, the Bonninghausen's X diagram, which helps us to put the remedies in the correct perspective and take the most important ones. To have a complete picture, we must have location, modality, sensation, and better still, a concomitant with the same qualities, which will help us to find our remedies more easily. Then we also said that it is the dynamic symptoms that matter most, because disease is a dynamic distortion of the life force. The next point that we talked about was the pyramid of the hierarchy of symptoms, in which we said that what really matters is what individualizes the patient. Then we talked about avoiding the pitfall of repeating rubrics which essentially point to the same complaint or symptom. The example used was searching for the lost cousin. Then we talked about why rubrics should not be too large or too many. And we also saw the mathematics behind that. And that in essence is what Dr. Will Taylor taught me with the fairy tale of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. So I hope I have been able to convey the essence of good repertorization, and I shall be using these principles and the principles which I have explained in the other videos in the first introductory module. Every case you will be able to see how these principles are applied in practice. You will be seeing cases which I have solved or which other famous practitioners have solved, but may have missed out on these essential guidelines. And why do we need these guidelines? Because we want replicability. If you were to be given the same case, you should be able to arrive at the same remedy as an experienced practitioner who had a successful case, not by using his method, but by using proven and tested methods of classical homeopathy. So thank you very much for your attention, and I hope to see you on the forum with your comments, with your feedback, and with the knowledge that you will be adding to the community. We look forward to that, and thank you very much for your participation. Bye bye.